I have a thought and then I have an idea.
Yeah.
The idea just came to me while you were explaining what transpired. But as it relates to the Deshaun Watson situation, ultimately, the deal didn't go down because somebody within the Dolphins organization, and I assume it came from the top, insisted on the 22 civil lawsuits pending against Deshaun Watson being resolved before a trade was finalized.
Right.
Wanted that part of it off the table, even though a criminal investigation would have continued, and it still continues.
Yeah.
There's an expectation that the grand jury's work will be completed by the end of this month, but who knows? It moves on its own calendar with no specific deadline other than the statute of limitations that would apply to whatever charges may be filed. But that is what, at the end of the day, kept it from happening. And again, who knows what kind of conversations happened within the building? Hey, we're going to get this guy. Let's get this guy. Let's just get this done. Maybe Flores was getting can we just resolve this once and for all? Because this is hovering over my team and it's keeping me from winning. And you know what? When the door finally closed on the possibility of getting Deshaun Watson during the 2021 season, what happened?
Yeah.
They went on a 7-game winning streak, starting with the Sunday after the trade deadline came and went. It hovered over the team. It was a distraction for the team. That's the one thing that we could glean clearly
100%
from Brian Flores' demeanor and words. This was a distraction, and he is all about no distractions from what it is that we're trying to do to win football games. So he's got a quarterback that he's got to go to battle with every week, and this guy is being twisted around and turned upside down by the possibility of Deshaun Watson. And you and I both know how that went down, that Tua did not handle it well, to say the least. So Brian Flores had to hold that together.
Exactly.
He had to keep Tua from completely and totally melting down during the Deshaun Watson phase. And then once that's finally off the table, Chris, they start winning games. They start getting it done. And, I can hear the conversations now. Well, if Ross says, well, we did win 7 in a row. Well, it's not exactly great teams that we were beating. I mean, come on. This isn't Newt Rockney stuff. Yeah, and again, I'm completely and totally speculating and also being facetious. But when these conversations are happening during games, when the coach is otherwise busting his ass to win games, he's not there to defend himself. He's not there to share his perspective, and it can get twisted and warped. And it's amazing to me that a guy who has made that much money in the business world over a course of decades could get manipulated the way he was manipulated into firing Brian Flores.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. But again, this is a thing I hear from a lot of, coaches, people in the NFL right now too. There's a lot of politicians in the league right now who know how to sell what they need to sell to keep the job or keep it going. That's where, it's I think frustrating to the old school brand of coach like a Brian Flores, who, yes, is not like an old guy. I get that. He's right around 40 years old, but he's old school in his approach. I mean, he is. He's from Brooklyn, New York. He's all about the grind, the work, no excuses. Worked in New England from the time he got out of college. He's seen all facets of the organization as he came up through the New England Patriots there. So he really understands everything that goes into making things successful. And that's where it just looks like, hey, again, on the outside looking in, that there was some sort of power play here, that there was. And, that Chris Grier won that battle. That's to me what it looks like more than anything. Yeah, Brian Flores is rough and tough, no BS, cutthroat type attitude. I'm sure scared people. There's no doubt about that. And then to me on the outside looking in, I do think it looks like it's like Grier and Ross decide to go Tua instead of Grier and Ross decide to go with Flores, and let's see who's the quarterback next, whether that's Watson or somebody else. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. I do think that's a major part of this conversation here. I do, which is unbelievable because we're in the issue that you're having, Stephen Ross and Chris Grier, because you caved to the public pressure of drafting Tua the first time around, and now here we are with enough evidence to me, for my opinion, that I've seen, and I know people think, again, screw you, Tua and all that, and it's not personal to Tua, but I've seen enough to go, I don't really think you're going to be able to ever make a deep playoff run with Tua as your quarterback. He can't play in weather. That's the one thing I know for sure now after 2 years. We saw it again in Tennessee 2 weeks ago, a little cold and a little rainy. Ball goes everywhere. You don't know what the hell's going to happen. We're getting – so there's issues there. And, like, God forbid, I don't know if it did go down this way where Flores, like, he's not on that side. I mean, he's only seen Tom Brady for 20 years. So what would he know about the quarterback position and what you need to win in the AFC East? But just all signs point towards that was the issue. And then here we go. It looks like Ross and Grier have caved to the public pressure in Miami. And it's Tua. And we're going to go that route over the bright, shiny star head coach we have that everybody looks at and goes, damn, he's a good football coach. You guys are lucky down there. And they're going to fire him instead. And now he's on the street, and we'll see where it goes with the Dolphins and Tua.
Here's my idea.
Yeah.
And what made me think of this was your comment from a few minutes back about Stephen Ross having a reputation for being a little loose-lipped.
Definitely,
and
yeah.
I can't divulge the full facts and circumstances. If I did, you would understand and agree that what I'm about to say is 100% truthful and accurate. I now wonder, did the Flores-Ross relationship go south, not 2021, not 2020, but 2019? Because I firmly believe that Stephen Ross entered the 2019 season, first year with Brian Flores as coach, with the intent of losing as many games as possible strategically in an effort to secure the first overall pick in the draft. Now, at the time, it was tank for Tua. However, what it became, because they did get Tua with the 5th overall pick.
Yeah.
But remember, those first couple of games, it was a disaster. It was awful. Minkah Fitzpatrick talked his way out of town. Get me out of here. I can't do this. And Flores eventually said, screw this. We're going to try to win football games. I can't go into that locker room and be respectful to the job, to the players, to the staff, to anyone with this plan that we're going to lose as many games as we can on purpose so we can have the first pick in the draft. So all of a sudden it flipped, and they ended up winning 5 games after they blew the first. I can't remember how many they lost in a row to start the season, but the tank was working until Flores said, I've had enough of this crap. So what ultimately happens? The Bengals end up being the worst team in the league that year.
Right.
They secure the rights to Joe Burrow. Stephen Ross had a bug up his butt about getting Joe Burrow and could not get the Bengals under any set of circumstances to agree to trade down from the top spot so the Dolphins could go get Joe Burrow. And now, unfortunately for Brian Flores, Ross was proven right, grand scheme of things. We should have lost every game that we could in 2019. We should have gotten Joe Burrow. Where would we be right now if we had just gotten Joe Burrow, if they had just listened to me? Who cares about 2019? 2 years later, nobody's thinking about whether we were good or bad in 2019. They don't even remember our record without looking it up. 5-11, 2-14, 1-15, 0-16. Who the hell cares? We would have had Joe Burrow. So you juxtapose what Joe Burrow is doing in Cincinnati with what Tua is doing in Miami, and that, when Ross is making his final decision, and again, it's the billionaire's prerogative. You never have to come out and make the order. You just make sure that people understand where you stand. From the get-go, Brian Flores didn't understand what the owner wanted. Brian Flores defied what the owner wanted, even though the owner never said.
Yeah.
As far as we know, maybe he did. Based upon some of the things I heard the owner say, maybe he did.
I doubt it.
A little too close to revealing I'm getting a little too close to revealing how I know what I'm saying. But, look, when it's time to make that call, and for all we know, this was either a rash decision that was made by Stephen Ross or it was a complete and total failure of PR by the Dolphins because there was no idea this was coming. Hey, PR professionals out there, if you're working for an NFL team or any sports team, if your boss is getting ready to make a move like this, probably a good idea to get the word out there just a little bit so it doesn't shock people the way that the Brian Flores thing shocked everyone. Not that people would have been okay with it, but at least they would have known it was coming. It would have removed some of the holy crap, what's wrong with Stephen Ross.
It speaks to more that it's a coup d'etat. That's where, to me, it speaks more to that. That's exactly right, Mike. That's where it just seems like it was like it's a Grier ownership. Hey, let's wink, wink, shake, shake. We got this going down. We're not going to tell anybody in the organization it's coming.
Let's keep it quiet.
Exactly.
So there won't be a pro-Flores backlash that
Exactly.
keeps us from doing it.
Right. We don't want to hear about what. Are they crazy? They might fire Brian Flores? That to me, again, there's just too many signs that point to this right now. at least in my opinion. And Mike, I mean, if that's the way it went down, again, that's failure on Stephen Ross to communicate exactly what he wants. And that's where maybe, you got to be in the building more instead of hanging out in Manhattan and New York City and doing that. Again, not that the owner has to be Jerry Jones. We get that. But your point about the owner being in the building or having a presence, at least that's very connected to him in the building on a daily basis, is a real thing. Hey, if the owner's not there, then the owner's right-hand man is there all the time. There's got to be some aspect of that. Again, I'll speak to the ownership of I was in Tampa, the Glaziers. There was always a presence around from the Glazier family. All right, so you knew you had to be on your P's and Q's to a degree. It was never just going to be like nobody's around. It's just free-for-all for the coaches. And no, there was always one of the brothers, somebody was there at that time. Of course, New England, my time there, being there. I mean, again, Mr. Kraft, the Kraft family had just the right touch, in my opinion. You knew he was there. He was upstairs. He was a floor above the coaches. He's going to walk around. He's going to say hi to everybody, make sure things were going good every day. If he wasn't there, Jonathan Kraft, the son, was there. And they were going to make sure you knew they were there. You're going to see him in the lunch line. But there was like, wait, hey, coach, the owner's here. And it didn't matter what you were. I mean, I could have been in my workout clothes and been like, I'm nobody in the organization. Oh, the owner's here. And they're, oh, my gosh, okay, let me straighten up. I mean, there's something to that. There's something to that. And that aspect seems to be lost there in Miami. And that's where there's a lot of issues. There's no question about it.
Hide my weed. The coach is here. The owner's here. Excuse me. But and it doesn't mean, look, you mentioned Jerry Jones. You could be doing a lot worse than Jerry Jones as an owner right now. The Cowboys won the division, and they have a pretty damn good football team.
Exactly.
But I look at it this way. I'd much rather have an owner who's all in than an owner who treats this like just some toy.
Yeah, it's a toy. That's what it is.
Like some diversion, right? I mean, what Dolphins fans should want today is Stephen Ross to wake up and say, I've had enough of this crap. I've had enough of these bozos on Peacock criticizing me. I'm going to sell the team. That's the best case scenario right now if you're a Dolphins fan. If you're somebody that's been following that franchise for years and years and years through Joe Robbie and Wayne Huizenga and now Stephen Ross, you are wishing and hoping and praying for the day that Stephen Ross no longer owns the team and hoping that whoever owns the team next is more like Jerry Jones or Robert Kraft and less like Stephen Ross. Because I look at it this way. And I remember this coming up after the passing of John Madden, that in a roundabout way, the way that John Madden made football seem so easy poisoned some of these oligarchs into thinking that, hey, it is easy and I'm smart. I made a lot of money elsewhere. I can figure out football. If you're all in and you've made billions in some other line of work, then I'm fine with that, because if you're truly all in, you're going to figure it out. You're going to figure it. If you're all in and you're willing to humble yourself and know what you don't know and learn it and grind the same way you learned and grind in whatever area of business you made your fortune, then the team will be okay. But at a minimum, just be there. Robert Kraft's there working on other stuff. He's not elbow to elbow with Bill Belichick, but he's there.
Right.
Free advice to anybody who's thinking about buying an NFL franchise, Jeff Bezos or anyone else. Move your base of operations to the headquarters of your NFL team if you want it to be successful, because you need to be present, you need to be there, and you need to be in a position where you don't get bamboozled by those in the organization who are trying to pull off a coup and get rid of a coach that isn't nice to me, that isn't all warm and fuzzy, that is focused during football season on winning football games and not anything else. Because if you're not there every day, you don't realize that someone else is pulling the wool over your eyes when it's time to make a big decision. And that's exactly what happened, I believe, firmly and completely to Stephen Ross and Brian Flores. They were the victims. They were the bystanders in all this. Forces in the organization that saw the opportunity to run off Brian Flores and convince Stephen Ross it was the right thing to do are the ones who did this. And they're the ones who are going to have to live with it.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.